At exactly 3:17 a.m. local time, approaching from the southwest over the Persian Gulf, a stealth F-35B Lightning II begins its final approach toward Kharg Island. Mounted beneath its wings are AARGM-ER anti-radiation missiles, a class of weapons specifically designed to detect, track, and destroy active radar systems. The moment a radar emits, the missile can identify and lock onto the source within seconds. Throughout its approach, covering more than 75 miles, the F-35B maintains an extremely low flight profile, staying between roughly 160 and 330 feet above the sea surface. It hugs the horizon, minimizing its radar cross-section and reducing the probability of detection to the lowest possible level. At this altitude, radar waves emitted from the coastline are heavily distorted by sea clutter and the curvature of the Earth. As a result, the aircraft effectively disappears from radar screens until it is already dangerously close. The jet continuously adjusts its flight path in a zigzag pattern. This prevents radar reflections from stabilizing long enough to achieve a reliable lock. Coastal defense systems can only register brief, inconsistent noise streaks, signals that appear and vanish within seconds, making it nearly impossible to determine a precise position or heading. At approximately 28 miles from the target, the F-35B reaches its designated firing position. At this distance, every radar installation on Kharg Island falls within the engagement envelope of the AARGM-ER. All emissions, from surveillance radars to fire control systems, have already been detected, classified, and precisely geolocated by the missile's seeker. Within a fraction of a second, the launch command is executed. Two AARGM-ER missiles separate from the wings and accelerate forward at speeds exceeding Mach 2. They require no visual tracking, no mid-course updates, only the electromagnetic signal itself. Just seconds after launch, abnormal activity begins to appear across Kharg Island. On monitoring displays, coastal radar emissions fluctuate sharply, intensifying, dropping, disappearing, then reappearing in rapid succession. Some emitters shift slightly from their original positions before stabilizing again. This indicates that the system is attempting to maintain operational awareness under conditions of disruption and electronic interference. Within seconds, air defense operators on Kharg begin to recognize that something is wrong. Radar signals spike unpredictably, then cut out, then return again for brief moments. Certain emitters fail to hold a stable position, drifting slightly before snapping back into place. This suggests that the system is increasing scan power and attempting to identify the source of the threat. But that response only makes things worse. The stronger and more active the radar emissions become, the more clearly they expose themselves to the incoming missiles. The AARGM-ER seekers continuously update their targeting solutions in real time, locking more tightly onto each emission source. At less than 12 miles from impact, air defense systems on Kharg Island begin to engage. TOR-M1 units and domestically developed medium-range systems such as Khordad-15 open fire. Multiple interceptors, including 9 M331 and Sayad missiles, are launched almost simultaneously. Each interceptor carries a price tag ranging from several $100,000 to over $1 million. Bright streaks of flame tear through the night sky, climbing rapidly in multiple directions. Within seconds, the airspace above Kharg becomes saturated with overlapping interception trajectories. However, those trajectories fail to converge on any single point. Without a stable target lock, the interceptors continuously adjust their course, only to drift off from their original paths. Some missiles self-destruct mid-air after losing guidance. Others fall into the sea after exhausting their energy. Despite the volume and intensity of the interception effort, none of it creates any meaningful disruption to the two incoming AARGM-ERs. Meanwhile, the anti-radiation missiles maintain their trajectory, driving directly toward the emission sources. There is no sign of interception, no forced deviation, no loss of tracking. Seconds later, both missiles strike their targets. The first missile impacts a radar site near the outer edge of the island. A brief flash appears, then disappears almost instantly. Immediately afterward, that emitter is completely removed from the network. Almost at the same time, the second missile slams into another emitter located deeper within the radar network. A section of radar coverage vanishes instantly, leaving behind a clearly visible gap between remaining zones. Previously overlapping coverage areas no longer exist. For the first time, the system develops real, functional blind spots. As radar nodes on Kharg Island go offline, surveillance over the northern Strait of Hormuz begins to collapse. Continuous coverage is lost. Data synchronization breaks down. Gaps begin to form across the maritime surface picture. At this point, groups of mine-laying boats continue moving along their original trajectories. However, they no longer receive any updates from shore. There are no corrections, no warnings, no changes in plan. They continue advancing without knowing the exact location of their intended targets. And that is precisely when the Amphibious Ready Group led by USS Tripoli begins moving into the area. Their mission is clear: locate and eliminate every active boat in the strait before those units can complete their task. USS Tripoli is far more than a conventional amphibious platform. On its flight deck, MH-60 Seahawk helicopters are already prepared for launch. They are equipped with surface search radar and carry enough firepower to destroy any small surface target. At the same time, reconnaissance UAVs are deployed to maintain continuous surveillance, ensuring that no movement offshore goes undetected. All data is fed directly into the ship's Combat Information Center, where it is analyzed in real time. Almost immediately, 2 MH-60 Seahawks lift off from USS Tripoli. Each aircraft carries AN/APS-153 surface search radar, infrared sensors, .50 caliber machine guns, and Hydra 70 rockets. Once stabilized in flight, both helicopters descend rapidly to an altitude of approximately 100 to 160 feet, skimming just above the water while maintaining enough separation to observe the entire forward area. From this moment on, the hunt officially begins. The two MH-60s split formation, each locking onto a separate sector in order to maximize coverage. There are no warning signals, no evasive maneuvers from the opposing side. The targets continue moving along their original paths, completely unaware that they are already under observation. The first target is a small boat accelerating toward a major shipping lane. Mounted on its deck are naval mines secured at the rear. There is no sign of deceleration, no change in direction. MH-60 locks onto the target from a distance of roughly 2,600 feet, maintaining a stable attack angle from above. A Hydra 70 rocket is launched on a near-vertical trajectory, striking the midsection of the hull. The explosion is not particularly large, but it is sufficient to break apart the structure and trigger the onboard explosives. The boat is torn apart instantly. Debris is scattered outward before quickly sinking beneath the surface. The second boat appears off to the right side of the formation, maintaining separation from the first target. It does not accelerate, nor does it attempt to change direction. It continues along its original course, as if nothing has happened. MH-60 quickly acquires the target from an offset angle, holding a steady altitude. A burst of .50 caliber fire is released, cutting straight across the bow. The rounds punch through the cockpit, tearing apart the control systems. The boat immediately loses direction. It yaws sideways across the water, drifting briefly before coming to a complete stop. There is no explosion, but the target is effectively neutralized. Farther out, another boat begins to break away from the formation, attempting to maintain distance from the area that was just engaged. But the moment the UAV updates its position, it is instantly brought into the engagement envelope. This time, MH-60 does not use rockets. A controlled burst of gunfire sweeps directly across the stern where the engine is mounted. Within seconds, the propulsion system is completely destroyed. The boat decelerates abruptly, sliding across the surface before coming to a halt. It remains structurally intact, but it no longer has the ability to move. At this point, the remaining targets begin to react for the first time. Several boats break away, attempting to exit the area in different directions. But dispersing does not make them harder to hit. It makes them easier to isolate. Each vessel becomes fully exposed on open water, stripped of the protection that formation once provided. The two MH-60 Seahawks continue dividing their sectors, engaging targets in small clusters. Each firing sequence lasts only a few seconds, just enough to eliminate a target before shifting to the next one. There is no prolonged exchange, no direct confrontation, only a repeated cycle: detect, lock, fire, and remove. At the outer edge of the engagement zone, only two boats remain. They no longer hold formation. Their movement becomes erratic, drifting off course as they attempt to find an escape route. But the distance to the helicopters is already too short. At that exact moment, one of the two boats suddenly slows down and turns broadside. Two figures appear on deck. They quickly raise a shoulder-fired launcher and aim toward the sky. For the first time in the entire engagement, there is a clear sign of resistance from below. The nearest MH-60 reacts instantly, pulling up and breaking out of the direct firing angle within a fraction of a second. There is no hesitation in the response. A Hydra 70 rocket leaves the launcher almost immediately, driving straight down toward the boat that just attempted to engage. The explosion occurs directly on deck. The entire target is erased in a single moment. The final boat has no options left. It accelerates to maximum speed, attempting to escape in the opposite direction. But in a battle space that has already been fully controlled, running only makes it more visible. A final burst of .50 caliber fire is released from MH-60 No. 2, cutting clean across the hull as the boat attempts to flee. The engine is destroyed instantly. The boat slows, drifts, and then comes to a complete stop on the surface. Within minutes, every target in the strait has been eliminated. Everything happens fast, precise, and with almost no opportunity for the opposing side to react. In less than 10 minutes, two primary radar stations on Kharg Island are neutralized, along with at least 6 to 8 mine-laying boats completely destroyed. Total estimated losses range between $5 and $10 million US. More importantly, every asset capable of directly threatening one of the most critical shipping routes in the region has been almost entirely wiped out. Control over the maritime battle space drops significantly, and from that moment forward, the balance shifts. After completing the mission, the F-35B Lightning II does not execute a sharp turn or accelerate aggressively. It maintains its low altitude for several more seconds, then gradually pulls up and exits the area along a pre-calculated corridor. There is no sign of pursuit, no target lock from below. In an airspace that has effectively lost its ability to see, the withdrawal is carried out with almost no resistance. Within minutes, the aircraft is already outside the engagement zone. USS Tripoli, LHA-7, was never meant to enter the fight in the traditional sense. It arrived to exploit a gap that had already been created. Once Kharg Island lost its ability to provide targeting data, every surface contact became exposed. Under those conditions, Tripoli's mission became straightforward: identify, lock, and eliminate whatever remained. Carrying a complete amphibious combat package, including MH-60 Seahawk helicopters, reconnaissance UAVs, and modern command and control systems. The ship moved into the area with a single objective: restore order in the strait. There was no need for large-scale firepower. Instead, it leveraged situational awareness and rapid response capability to control the environment one target at a time. Every movement on the surface was tracked in real time. Every threat was dealt with the moment it appeared. And in a situation where the opposing side had lost its ability to observe, that advantage became absolute. When it was over, only scattered debris remained drifting across the surface. A few small fires lingered briefly before being swallowed by the sea. The shipping lanes reopened without the need for any further intervention. More importantly, the entire operational chain behind Kharg Island was disrupted immediately. Units operating offshore no longer received real-time targeting data. They no longer had the ability to adjust movement based on changing conditions. For a brief period, all maritime activity effectively froze. What remained were disabled vessels or drifting assets with no operational control. In the hours that followed, no significant military activity from Iran was recorded in the area. No additional boats were deployed. No signs of regrouping were observed. Radar signals from Kharg gradually returned, but they remained unstable and were unable to restore continuous coverage. This indicates that the system was not capable of recovering in the short term. On a broader scale, shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz continued to operate normally. No vessels were forced to reroute. No emergency alerts were issued by major shipping companies. Oil prices showed no significant fluctuations immediately after the event, suggesting that the market assessed the situation as contained. And in a region where even a minor disruption can trigger global shockwaves, that stability carries a very clear meaning.